you everybody for coming. Welcome to the November 13th community meeting for PatternFly. This is the big reveal of PatternFly 6, which recently came out on October 31st. Very exciting. It's been a long time coming, working on a new visual for PatternFly. I think it's been 5-ish years since we last released a visual update. So very excited to walk everyone through it. And we have a presentation with a lot of presenters, a lot of content. So just one housekeeping note, if you have questions or comments, you can put them in chat and our awesome, knowledgeable staff will certainly be able to help you out. If you think of anything after the fact, there's List PatternFly and other channels that you can reach out and we'll be able to address them there as well. So no pressure to ask questions live in the meeting. We'll be here to chat later on. So I'll share my screen. And present it. All right. So we're just going to go through some of the release highlights today. We'll kind of touch on design, core, React, and then extensions. And when we get into migration, we're going to go in kind of a circle and go through all the different design, core, and React migration steps as well. So a little bit of a loop-to-loop today. We'll talk about the design tokens and theming, our new ChatBot extension, migration, as I said, and then we'll talk a little bit very quickly about what's next. Admitting. Ooh, okay. So we're gonna actually start off with the design team. So Lucia, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, so the most noticeable change for PatternFly 6 is that it's got a whole new face. Did a big makeover, but it wasn't just to make things look pretty. We had two main goals in mind. We wanted to take the opportunity to align our visuals better with the Red Hat brand and digital portfolio, and then also to support better theming capabilities and improve designer and developer handoff through the introduction of design tokens. You can go to the next slide. So this is a before and after screen. This is just a screenshot from one of our products. And then the next slide has it in PatternFly 6. So you can notice that they're much softer, rounder edges, a new color palette, and I'll dive into those in a second. So that main goal that we had was to align with Red Hat's design language. We were in a working group with the rest of the design team community at Red Hat, and we really worked to align our look and feel with the rest of Red Hat's look and feel. You can go to the next slide. Some of the noticeable changes that came out of that working group and are now included in PatternFly 6 are an updated color palette, softer rounded edges that match better with brand's illustration style, and then we also updated our typography styles and standards. And then we also did like a total overhaul with our previous global variables and introduced the concept of design tokens. These are similar to our old variables, but they have a whole token layer system to them, and then they're also a lot more semantically named. So within our design token system, we have our palette tokens, which are our brand colors that I just mentioned. And then those feed up to our base token layer, which are kind of like our control panel for all of our tokens. It's a limited set. And then we have our main players, the semantic tokens. These are the ones that are actually in all of our design works and in our components, and they're semantically named. And they have all of those theming values baked into them. So you can go to the next slide. Which is really great because when we go to design or build out any of our components, we can really easily choose for the appropriate token because they're all semantically named for very specific instances or design decisions. So if we're going to try to find the floating background color for this floating modal, we can choose a very specifically named semantic token for that, which is background color floating default. And as you can see here, like once we switch to a different theme, the value of that switches out. So we only have to define it once, and those values are baked in. And those semantic tokens can represent a number of different very small repeatable design decisions like font style, border width, border radius, and even micro animation properties like duration and timing functions. And I'll hand it off to core team to talk more about tokens.
Thanks.
Thanks, Lucia. Yeah, so tokens is a game changer on the core side of things. This has replaced our previously known as global variables. We had a lot of global variables like color 100, 200, 300, background color 100, 200, 300. Now we have a super robust set of very specific, meaningful tokens that are hooked into all the right places and used consistently across all of PatternFly. It allows for an incredible level of customization. The CSS files that hold these tokens, then they're just CSS variables. The core team no longer manages. We don't make changes to those files. They're read-only. They're imported directly from an export that runs from Figma. So Figma exports the variables from the Figma files. We pass that through Style Dictionary, and Style Dictionary converts them to CSS variables for us, and then we just import them. And so if we need to change a text color or a primary blue color or something like that, it's done in Figma, and then we just import the change from design. So that's really cool. The structure of the tokens is very robust. We spend a lot of time figuring out good top level structure for all the different groups of token types, and then as you trickle down into the top level groups, you get more groups and lots of really well named and grouped variables. Allows for a lot of customization, and the little Halloween jack-o'-lantern guys is a sneak peek of what's to come here in a sec. The tokens use semantic and meaningful naming convention, as compared to our previous global variables, which, like I mentioned, used color 100, 200, 300. What is that? We have text color default, or text color hover, or icon color default and hover. We have like a brand blue default, hover, active, focus, things like that. So these variables are named very meaningfully. So without understanding what the variables are from looking at, like I say, a definition list of what they are, you can look at the tokens and feel fairly confident that you can glean the meaning and how to use the token just from the way that it's named. And so that's really good. That was a great update to the system. And then having such a robust set of variables and hooks into PatternFly for all of the different design decisions. Like mentioned in I guess the third one with the jack-o'-lantern, it allows for customization of PatternFly, but also, just to get to that last bullet, enables products to create their own UI element style with PF tokens. So instead of customizing PatternFly to make your brand look red instead of blue, etc., you can read those tokens and build out your own components and widgets and things that PatternFly doesn't offer, your own custom styles, and use very specific tokens that we've specified for all the different types of stuff that might go into your widget. And so it allows you to match PatternFly's overall styles. And when you use the tokens, because dark theme modifies, all it does is modify the top level tokens. Your custom elements, custom built elements of built tokens should adopt dark theme just fine. They're accessible. We've done a lot of work. The design team has done a lot of work, I should say, in ensuring that the accessibility of the tokens is good. Specifically, an easy one to call out would be color contrast with the colors, for example. And then they stay up if you're using tokens in your application to style your own custom elements, that they stay up to date with PatternFly as PatternFly changes the values of tokens, and maybe we change the shade of blue to a different shade of blue or that kind of thing. And so allows you to build really cool things using that system. And then there at the bottom, we just have a link for developable tokens that you can read about on how to access the tokens, how to read them, how to know which ones to use, things like that. Next slide. Yeah, so here's the jack-o'-lantern deal, design tokens and theming. So when we released on Halloween, it was a little more timely. But you know, November Halloween's not so bad. We took some time to do a little exercise, and this was primarily driven by design. And so Lucia, who just spoke, was kind enough to just in Figma put together a prototype for a page. And so this is a standard page. And then we applied a spooky or a Halloween theme to it. And so can I take the screen share, Andrew?
Yep, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Aiming into that there. Yeah, okay, so if we just go to spooky.patternfly.org, just a redirect to a URL that we put together for this demo. This is just a Patternfly page, nothing special. A couple of custom things like this cauldron icon doesn't come with Patternfly, but just a Patternfly page. So we built this out, Halloween content, of course, and you look at dark themes. There's nothing custom, nothing special here, just whatever. And then here's with the spooky theme on, and all this is Lucia and Figma designed this page, and then she changed the variables that Figma has for the different color assets that we're using as tokens. Exported those global level tokens. We imported them into Patternfly and just applied them to the page and said, hey, when you click on this spooky theme button, add those this small subset of CSS overrides. So, and then you can toggle dark theme and see the light theme. And everything works beautifully. And so it was a really good showcase to show what can you actually do. And we also put this together in a record amount of time. The vast majority of the time was just building the page, the theming part, you know, maybe 5 minutes. 5 was the hooking up, importing the CSS. So, okay, I'll stop sharing.
Can you jump back? Okay. Go ahead.
And then we also collaborated with the OpenShift AI team to really try to stretch the limits of the theming capabilities within Patternfly to apply a material theme to Patternfly. So take a bunch of design assets that come from material as a token system as well, and plug those into Patternfly's tokens and see if we can theme Patternfly to look like material. And for the most part, it works great. It's not really what we had in mind with theming. It stretches our abilities, but it worked surprisingly well. So that was really cool. And then just a nod to the future, we really have opened the door for being able to build different themes. And so one that we often talk about and think would be great for Patternfly and a total win for accessibility would have a high contrast theme. So maybe keep an eye out for that coming up. Next slide, please. I'm going to highlight just a handful of things that changed in the structure layout with V6. There's a lot. It's just to kind of say that like these are some of the bigger types of things, but take a look or look out for this in all of the components. The masthead, the brand and logo and hamburger area, like on the left, typically of your masthead was restructured, and so the elements they all still exist. They were just renamed. A couple of different containers were introduced and things like that. If there's a note above this bulleted list that says if you're using React components, then the structural changes should be transparent. And we have Codemods that I believe will take care of most of these changes for you. The page, the main container, so the like where your main content goes, that was all restructured. And it's worth noting that page content area, it no longer fills the viewport height by default, and that's on purpose. So we have a hook in place to allow for the ability for it to fill the viewport height, but by default, that's a design decision to go away from that look and feel. So if you notice that, and it looks different, then give it a shot. And so the content component elements, which are basically like your ability to write headings and paragraphs and lists and things, and they get default formatting. Think of something like Markdown, maybe. Previously, the content component worked so that you have a content component wrapper, and then inside of it you have all of your content. You have your headings and paragraphs and whatnot. We updated that component so that you don't have to have a content wrapper, and you can just use a paragraph from the content component. And one of the cool things that it does is that it formats the text as a paragraph would, and it also formats the spacing around the paragraph as you would expect from a paragraph. So if it has something like before and after, for example, it's going to add space around it. Same thing with headings. Basically what that means is that previously you couldn't do this, but you can do it now. You could have a content component heading, like an H1 or an H2, and then you can have a data list underneath it. And you can have another content component heading, H2 or H3, whatever, and then a bunch of other components and stuff that come after it. And your heading will space itself from the table and the paragraphs and whatever that might come after it. So that's pretty cool. Next slide. Just gonna briefly go over a few miscellaneous changes. In an effort for accessibility, also just staying up with the times and trying to improve our layout. We fully adopted GAP. GAP being able to be used across the board. We've been doing it for a while, but with this change, we went back and refactored a number of our old components that were using margins from the time when we couldn't use GAP for browser support. So you'll see GAP all over the place now. Utility classes. The name of a utility class is often tied to like the variable or something that is offered from PatternFly. It's a way to apply a class to something and get it some style asset. And so a lot of the utility classes were named based off our previous global variable system and not off of the new token system. And so a lot of the class, excuse me, a lot of the class names changed just to reflect the new token names. Our SAS was refactored just a bit. So we moved off of the old and soon to be, hopefully, we'll see, deprecated import system in SAS, and just changed everything to use and forward instead. And so that's great. We align with other groups in PatternFly that are doing the same thing now with that. And then there were a few structural changes, like a few file names kind of shifted around, things like that. So if you're importing PatternFly SAS and compiling it on your own, just look out for that kind of stuff. The fonts that we use in PatternFly, we previously used the standard fonts, Red Hat Text, Red Hat Display, and then we would have a version for bold and italic. And now we use variable fonts. And the cool thing about these variable fonts is it really allows for fine-tuned font weight adjustment. And so look out for that. And then another just cool thing, it's not really a change in the library, it's around documentation, but it's important with regards to applications customizing PatternFly, is that we have documentation on what we consider to be a breaking change. So the kind of stuff that we will and will not do from release to release. And the reason that's important is because if you're making overrides to PatternFly, if you don't want a subsequent release of PatternFly to break those overrides, take a look at that document and see the types of things that we are and are not going to change, and make sure overrides that you apply on top of PatternFly fall in line with the expectations of what we might or might not change with a subsequent release. And, so give that a go. And it was just put together, so if you have feedback, please bring that back to the group. We'd love to hear about it. And I think that's it.
Great, thanks a lot. Up next, we have Tatani on the React side.
Yeah, good morning. So for the React updates for V6, the majority of the work was taking in the updates from core, because the majority of the work fell into the core workspace. So, we made updates to our components that may have broken from the core updates, and there were some API changes as a result of that, which would be handled by our Codemods. Because the React work was relatively small compared to the core work, it allowed our team to lean in and help pick up a lot of the core issues and help land that work. some more significant changes that were exclusive to the React workspace, where we added an update to our React token scripting so that we now also deliver token JS objects for the consumers to import. Another change was our components that we introduced as next components in PatternFly 5 are now promoted to our recommended solution. So those components would be the modal and the dual selector. So the new modal is composable, which allows more flexibility for our consumers. We can examples, you can add multiple bodies within a modal now. And the dual selector in V5, we had two implementations, a composable one and a non-composable implementation. So we settled on the composable implementation since it's more flexible for our consumers. And that is now the solution that we recommend. So the old modal and dual selector have been deprecated. So you can still use those. And we have Codemods to update your import path to the deprecated path. But you will need to update the by our next major release, where we would plan to remove the old implementations. And so that's it for the major changes in React. There are a few more that we will cover later on the slide to do with deprecated components. There was another bullet point that I added later over there. I just wanted to mention one more thing. Another component that we did update was the text component. It has been renamed to content, and that is to better align with what it really functions as. For instance, the content component styles a horizontal role, which is not really text. So we renamed that component, but the Codemod should handle that renaming for you when you run them. So it really wasn't, that's why we didn't choose to update it as a next component, because it's really the same implementation with some API changes, but it's really just a rename. And that's it for the major updates in the React workspace.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Don with the extensions.
Hi, everyone. So for the extensions updates, similar to React, most of the work was done in core, and we do use React. So the updates were to basically pull in the updates from V6 into the extensions. So everything is pretty much similar with the new look and feel and the new interactions. Some updates that we do have is severity has now been replaced with the battery component. And we've moved some of the sections around. Component groups used to be under the extensions, but now it's at the top level, so you'll find it there. It has more detail and more information in there, and has been rearranged to better suit the layout of grouping the different components together. We also have a new virtual assistant, aka ChatBot extensions, that will be going over in more detail further down, and having a demo on that. And that's it from the extension side.
Awesome, thanks. Speaking of, we're going to go into the new chatbot interface. There was the existing previous virtual assistant, but now we've created this kind of brand new look and feel for chatbot. So I'll actually hand it over again to Kayla and Rebecca.
All right. So this is a quick glimpse at what the new extension looks like. I'm going to show you a longer demo later in the presentation. Before we had this, products were starting to build their own ad hoc chatbots, and this is an opportunity to drive consistency and collaboration across everybody who needs this type of experience. It's going to give you out-of-the-box support for dark and light theme, right to left switching, internationalization. It's going to work well with PatternFly 6. You're going to be able to take advantage of all this stuff like keyboard navigation and accessibility testing that have been done on the PatternFly 6 components that this is built with. And it's fully customizable. You can use it with any backend you need, and it's also going to work well within PatternFly React Seed. We performed an initial round of accessibility testing, and we have plans for analytics and also usability testing, as well as some docs. I'm going to hand this off to Kayla in the next slide to talk a little bit about the design process.
Thanks, Rebecca. So in April of this year, our chatbot designs were born. When I joined the chatbot team, which was in July, my priority was to translate the uniqueness of all of the original chatbot designs into consumable components and layouts. And in order to do that, we actually needed to integrate and weave those designs with the PatternFly Patterns and Extensions Figma library. And then the extra bonus is that we could time this integration with our PatternFly 6 release. Some of my responsibilities on this project was to oversee the migration of those designs into the PatternFly design system, promote collaboration between design and dev, and to drive consistency. We also wanted to make sure to consider external product team requests and then help standardize our design principles and guidelines with huge support from our colleague Aaron. It was also important to identify commonalities within the AI space early on if we could, so we could take the product feedback into account in a productive manner, then build a scalable and repeatable chatbot layout. And you can see some of the results of this integration listed in our bullet points here, but a few highlights are standardized components, consistent styling using our V6 tokens and styles library, and then reusable layouts that benefit multiple product teams. I'm gonna go ahead and pass this back to Rebecca so she can get us started with our mini demo.
Great. I'm going to take over from Eric. And all this stuff is living on the main PatternFly website under this brand new PatternFly AI section. You can see all of our brand new docs that Aaron has worked hard on, such as about AI, AI guidelines, and down at the bottom, conversation design. The actual chatbot lives, as you might expect, under chatbot. And right now it contains the following features: a container, a toggle, a composable header and footer, a set of messages and things that can get attached to messages, attachment features, and then a conversation history feature. We also have a handful of demos that show you how to tie it all together. I'm going to take you through the chatbot container demo so we can show you what that looks like. And you can see down here the chatbot toggle, and the icon will change. When you click on it, it opens up this main panel. In this header, you can access some sample chat history that we put in. This is fully searchable, and you're more than welcome to play with this. You can also clear out the chat history if you click new chat. Also in this header, you can change between display modes. We have 4 different display modes that we shipped as part of this extension. There's overlay, there's dock to window, there is full screen, and then there's a 4th one, which is embedded, and it looks very similar to full screen, but you can put it in any layout of your choosing, such as a PatternFly page. Inside the actual content, we have a welcome message that's fully customizable, some sample prompt layouts, and then some sample messages for users and bots with different types of text, as well as different types of code that you can actually copy and paste. And then at the bottom, we have some response icons that are buttons, and you can wire this up to do whatever you need to submit feedback or copy or share or whatever actions that you might need. Down at the bottom, we have an input field, and you can type in here. There's also a use microphone function. This will actually work. We've wired this up for you, and it'll listen to you and then fill text into the input field. We also have an attachments function that we've wired up for you as well. Once you send, we've wired up the demo to mimic what an actual interaction might act like and to demonstrate the loading message, as well as when it stops loading. We have some other demos for attachments, and then also we have some other features such as sources if you're using RAG or retrieval augmented generation. Due to time, we're not going to show you, but if you're interested, we'll have a longer demo if you're a Red Hatter on Tuesday, and we'd love to invite you if you want to put your name in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right, let's take the screen share back for a minute. All right. So we kind of ran through all the new and cool stuff that's coming with V6. So how do you actually move? I guess just a quick recap of why you would want to move. So we have new, clean, modern design, and those are terms that were used in our latest usability tests that we had with a bunch of internal stakeholders. We talked to PMs, designers, developers across different product areas, and we got positive feedback on the new updates. It is also more aligned with the Red Hat standards. Obviously, we talked about the color palette changes, typography, even the updated visuals that Red Hat is coming out with are more in line with the new look of V6. So we're hoping to keep continuing on that seamless experience between redhat.com or a product or wherever you are in the ecosystem. The design tokens, as we kind of pointed out, are really powerful and flexible, and you can kind of build and maintain components or build your own theming. It's more scalable and will migrate better over versions as we go forward. We did cover the ability to customize themes. We had the nice spooky demo there, which was really awesome and powerful. We made that update in just a few days and had that demo running. It was pretty lightweight and easy to build that custom demo there. The new chatbot is exclusively on V6, so if you want to take advantage of that, you need to migrate over, which is pretty cool. We'll be introducing micro animations over the course of V6. We've laid the principles and motion tokens already, so we'll cover things like duration, timing functions, and transition types. So we have a pretty extensive token set for that already, and now we're going to apply it in more components. And finally, we have more composable and accessible component solutions that are available on PatternFly 6. So if you're a designer working in PatternFly, we had a recent training session, and I think that not the last day of learning, but the one before, but that was recorded, and the demo and slides are all available in the links provided. We have 3 different Figma files with V6, whereas in previous versions it was just the one. We actually have a dedicated file for patterns and extensions. So things like the chatbot, our topology, quick starts, catalog view, they're all available in that separate folder, but it's all searchable. So once these are added to your Figma library, you'll be able to pull those. If you're going to move over and design exclusively in V6, it's good to turn off the V5 library in whatever file you're working in, just to avoid getting, if you're searching assets, you'll get duplication of components. So it's easy to just focus on the one library rather than trying to maintain 2. All these are currently available and published on for Red Hat and in our community page. I can provide links to those as well. All right, next update is back to the core team.
Hi. So, we know that you may have made some CSS customizations or have some styles for custom components that now might not look quite right with the new look. So we've created a couple of resources to help you out. One is an explorer to help you see what design tokens are available, and the other is a guide with suggestions on how to find the correct design token for your need. For example, you may have been styling something to use one of our old color variables, and instead of just looking for a token with that hex value, now you want to find the semantic design token with the same purpose as what you're trying to accomplish. So for example, if it's maybe the floating background color, the text color on disabled background, there are tokens for all of these. This will make sure that your custom styles automatically work in light and dark mode and any other theme. And it's resilient to future updates to the palette or any other changes that PatternFly makes to look and feel. And you can find these resources in the tokens section of the main navigation, and we are here to help. So please reach out if you have questions or you just want to run through a couple to get a feel for how the semantic tokens work. Happy to help.
Thank you, Sarah. Going on to React, there's a big section here to cover. So, I'm not the normal person to talk about this. Not sure, Chitani, are you okay to talk about this?
Yes, I am. All right. So we have some newly deprecated components in React, and we've actually removed some of the components that we have deprecated in V5. So in V5, we deprecated the application launcher, drop-down options menu, context selector, and the select. And they were replaced with the menu toggle and menu. The drop-down and select that are starred here, they have some simple implementations that we do still have in our React library, but we've also introduced PatternFly templates, which Katie will cover later. This will help you migrate to our new select components if you're still on V5. But also you have the option of creating your own drop downs and application launchers with our menu toggle and menu components. The page header has now been replaced by the masthead, so that page header now is completely removed. And next slide, please. Okay. Oh, so we do have some components that we did deprecate in V5 that are still around because they were based on the same styles, as the V5 implementation. So we have the table and the composable table. So composable table is the solution that we ship as our recommended solution. We still have the deprecated table because it was based on the same styles. So we kept it around so folks have longer to migrate to those. And the legacy wizard is also based on the same style sheet as the new wizard, so that's still around, so you can still use those, and they're still deprecated. But we may remove them. We plan to remove them in V7. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and we do have some newly deprecated components. We have the drag and drop that was deprecated. We now ship a new package, React drag and drop, which is based on D&D. And you can now, any of these deprecated components are still available. You just would import them from the deprecated path. Now the chip one is interesting. We've removed we deprecated the chip component, but what it really is the label under the hood, because the label was removed in the core repo. It wasn't, there is no V6 implementation in core of the chip. So in order to help with migration, we have wrapped a label component in React and ship it as the chip for you. So it's the same API. So now you just import that from the deprecated path, and that gives you time to update to using the label between now and our next major release. So the modal, as I mentioned earlier, has been deprecated to now use the new composable modal and the dual selector, as I mentioned earlier as well. And the tile component has been deprecated with no replacement per se, but there is a variation of the card to use the selectable card in place of using the tile because they're very similar. So we settled on that solution. So that's it for the newly deprecated components. Okay, so next is React templates.
Yep. All right. Hello, everybody. So this is our React templates. It's one of our more recent packages that we added back in, I think 5.3 is when you can first use this. I'd recommend personally to probably try to target 5.4 to use this because there were additional templates and bug fixes that got added for the 5.4 release of our templates package. And then as a brief overview, our templates are kind of a component that is shipped with logic. So instead of having to kind of fully migrate over to like our new select, for instance, that has type ahead logic and a bunch of supporting logic that you now need to provide, it kind of has a more of a data in, view out type of archetype. So you provide it with the initial options and some handling callback for information, and it will largely handle all of the logic for you. So it has a streamlined API, but the flip side is there's more limited customization. This package will be very helpful, especially for those looking towards V6 and may have some lingering deprecated selects and dropdowns that are still kind of old V4 and otherwise would be a lot of maybe a major lift to refactor. This is also useful if you just want to avoid a lot of additional setup and logic and management for more basic use cases for selects and dropdowns, either as like a replacement for some of those old selects or even as like a starting point reference for your own refactor. Like if you have a more custom use case, it's a pretty good starting point to look at for kind of a customization standpoint. So you start with the basic code from the template, but then you can edit the template yourself. And they live in PatternFly / React templates, and they are supported for V6 as well. And that's it for templates. Thanks.
Thanks, Kitty. All right, next we got some cool transformers and Codemods.
All right, thanks, Andrew. So what are Codemods at a high level? They are a set of tools that the PatternFly team has built out to try and make the process of migration as easy as we possibly can. If you used Codemods for the V4 to V5 transition, then there's nothing earth-shatteringly different this time around. There's a few differences, but from a high level, we're looking at mostly the same kind of thing. The kind of core package that we talk about when we talk about Codemods is the @PatternFly/PF Codemods package, which is something that is based around and built on top of ESLint. It will go through any JavaScript-based files, so any JS, TS, JSX, TSX, anything like that, because it is, like I said, based off of ESLint. So that's one limitation of it. And it will look through your code and give you, at the minimum, advice, and ideally, wherever we're able to make it work, automatically fix changes that would need to be made as part of the breaking change updates. It has two kinds of different outputs it'll give for any of our mods, just like you are used to with ESLint. It can be either a warning, which for us means that it's something that shouldn't cause any actual build errors. You should still be able to get a successful build, but you might see test failures because of changes in the structure of a component or things like that, or just things that we want to make you as a consumer aware of, but like I said, won't cause build failures. Anything that will cause an actual build error should get flagged as an error and not as a warning. We don't handle formatting, as kind of ESLint has moved towards as well. If you want to have everything nice and pretty afterwards, you will need to run your formatter, so prettier or what have you, on the changed files after Codemods are ran. You will see it'll leave kind of new lines in places that look kind of funky, but your formatting setup should be able to handle it just fine. Because we are limited to only JavaScript-based files with the PF Codemods package, we do have another package called the class name updater, which specifically goes through and updates any hard-coded class names. So, PF-V5-C-button, it'll find those in your CSS files and update those to V6. One big change here from the V5 version of Codemods is that the class name updater no longer changes any CSS variables, because with the migration to the tokens, that they don't map one-to-one anymore like they did for the V4 to V5 change. To try and help resolve that issue, we do actually have another package that we're currently working on developing that Adam will talk about more in just a little bit. And I think that covers all of the high-level stuff. Eric, if you want to run through kind of the general workflow.
Sure. Just real quick, want to do a time check. Andrew, would you mind if I combine the Codemod demo with this bullet point, since they're so linked together? Or
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to take over?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. And I guess fingers crossed that I don't suddenly run into an issue with Google Chrome today. Okie doke. Any thumbs down if this cannot be viewed? I'll assume no thumbs down is good. All right, cool. So the general workflow is you have your repo locally. I'm using our React catalog view extension just to have something quick to do. Now you'll be at the root of your repo, and you'll want to run our codemod command, which is in the repo README. You can see, but here it's npx @PatternFly/pf-codemods, and we are using this --v6 flag because we are upgrading from v5 to v6, and this other parameter here is just the path to the source file. So off the bat, no other flags yet. This is what we will run. And once that's run, you can see here we have a not a terrible amount, but a good amount of things flagged. We have some errors. We have a warning. At this point, you just want to kind of go through, look them over, see what's what. Obviously, in some code bases, it'll be a lot more to have to go through, but it can be very helpful to really understand what you're running into. At this point, okay, I'm going through it. I understand what's going on. So it looks not fine. It will be fine, but fine for now. So at this point, you're going to basically run that same command again that you just ran to get this output. But you're going to add in the -- fix flag. And if any of our code mods have auto fixers, this will handle it for you. So you run it once. And you see we have 2 problems now compared to the 7 problems from the first run. And you can see over here, some of the files have changed. Ignore some of these changes. I added some of this stuff in as part of this demo. But you can see dual selector that was previously imported from our next directory is now just imported from React Core with this nifty little data Codemods comment. And in this other file, you can see text variants have been updated to the renamed content variants. And you will see other similar updates made as you run the fix flag. So you see those updates are done. And at this point, you're going to want to basically just continue running this same command with the fix flag over and over, because some fixes rely on other fixes getting in first. So I'm going to run it again. And let's just say there's other issues, and I've run this, 5 to 7 times. At this point, 2 problems, 1 error, 1 warning. Nothing else is being auto-fixed. At this point, our auto-fixers cannot do any more. They're basically done. And from here, you kind of want to review what's left. And this is kind of where you can start making some manual updates. You see this warning is just a warning about markup for the accordion item. A lot of these warnings will just be things that may not break the code base. Maybe they'll affect like tests. Maybe you'll have to update some tests or something along those lines. Generally, nothing too egregious to worry about. But this application launcher error is telling us it's no longer exported by PatternFly. So this is kind of a manual update we'd have to do. Go in, see, okay, well, application launcher is no longer a thing. So we have to remove the import, and we have to find where it's being used. And totally no, this is not an actual use case of application launcher, but I just want to throw it in there. So let's say, okay, we don't need it. Let's remove it. Or remove it and you replace it with something cooler. Which, of course, for me, it took 5 seconds to make this manual update in an actual use case. It might take a little longer. But yeah. So you've run auto fixers, you've made manual updates. What do you do now? You may notice that I did not manually remove this comment. And it's very important to not make those sort of manual updates. If one of our code mods adds a comment like this or adds a data attribute somewhere, do not remove that manually, because some of our code mods rely on those comments or data tags being there to prevent other code mods from running. If I remove this and continue running our auto fixers, this dual selector was imported from our React Core /next directory, but now there's nothing saying, this dual selector import's fine, don't touch it. If I run the fixer, it's going to update the path to the deprecated directory, which you do not want if you were previously using the next implementation. Let me just do that. And at this point, if you're totally done with auto fixers. You've made whatever manual updates you need to make. At this point, you can run. You have a specific code mod for this. Just need to find the tab. And it is the data dash codemods dash cleanup rule. So instead of the dash dash fix flag, we'll replace that with dash dash only. And get a codemods cleanup. Probably actually have to, yeah. You do need the fix flag. So you don't replace it, you add on to it. And you can see the comment was automatically removed. So that'll help you remove a lot of stuff that we're adding in, less of a headache for you. And at that point, that's kind of, you only want to run that when you're at the point where you're basically done with code, with running our CodeMod commands, at least for the CodeMod package itself. The next step would be to run our class name updater package, which similar way to run it. Instead of at PatternFly /pf codemods, you would do class name updater. And you can see here, without any fix flag, it tells you what is wrong, essentially. You can see this, we're using this screener class with the v5 suffix still, and it tells you, where it's at if you want to go investigate that. And to fix it, same thing, dash dash fix flag, and it will update it. And you can see it's been updated in catalog tile badge. Yep, here you go. So it's been updated automatically for you. And that's essentially it for the class name updater package. Quick note, just that package doesn't really have as many guardrails as the primary CodeMod rules. So you definitely want to take a little more caution before just blindly running the fix flag. You want to make sure that you do want to fix whatever it finds. And that's the intended general workflow of CodeMods and the class name updater package. And from here, I will remove my screen share. And I will pass it over to Adam to go quickly over the next package we plan to add in.
Yeah, let me share very quickly. So I hope you can see this. So there will also be a new package which will do the CSS variables fixing. It will not be able to update like all these tokens automatically because, as was mentioned previously, lots of the names changed. However, it will try to do its best. We have also introduced some new tokens which can help you with the migration. So yeah, I'll just run this package. It's not released yet, but it will be soon. And when we do the fix, it will update the classes. Some of these has only like the naming change. However, the values are similar to the previous ones. Some of those variables were removed in v6. It will tell you with this command. And now for the global color variables, to help you migrate, we've introduced this temp def variable, which is basically a hot pink color token. So you can easily see on your page which colors need an update. You can see here the previous color, and then you can go through the new design tokens and choose the proper token instead of the old one. And yeah, there were also some tokens which were previously like padding left, padding right, you can do these auto updates, and it will update them to either inline start, inline end. You can also run this with an interactive mode, and you can here customize more like which file extensions do you want to update, if you want to exclude any files from the updates, if you want to run the fixer or no, whether you want actually to replace the color tokens or you don't want to replace them. Let's say we don't want. And yeah, if you want to replace other global variables like these non-color ones, let's say we do, and let's say we have a RTL website, so it will update accordingly. And yeah, that's it, basically what it will do.
Awesome, very cool. All right, I know we're right at the time here, so we're going to try and lightning round. I'm going to pass it over to Evan to talk about some of the migration effort.
Yep, I'll go fast. Thanks everyone for joining. We're super jazzed about PatternFly 6 being out there and live. We've already got some momentum with some of the products here at Red Hat. So you can see here, I don't have to talk through all of it. I will just call out a lot of these products have started with PatternFly 5, just removing deprecated components as kind of like a first step to the upgrade process. A lot of them are also working closely with us. So I know Sarah called it out earlier to reach out. We're here to help. So I would say if you see any of these products and maybe you roll up underneath one of these or tie into one of these, and you're kind of curious, what does this mean, or specific timelines, definitely reach out. There's a lot of different teams and products, and we're kind of right in the middle of all of that. So we're happy to try and connect dots and make those connections where we can. So thank you.
All right, we had scheduled the console.demo with some of the early migration efforts, but just because of time, we're going to skip it today, but we'll try and run it at the next office hours in 2 weeks. So stay tuned for that. Looking at some of the next steps, the very near-term future, as you saw with the previous slide, that we're really working hard on supporting migration. So we have actual PatternFly resources out in the wild, as well as UXD team resources. Trying to enable those migration efforts, and we're also spending time on the bug fixes that came up through the testing process to help enable that migration effort. So we will cut an early December release for PatternFly 6, like our Q4 milestone. Beyond that, we'll be focusing on micro animations as kind of a big topic that we've kind of already talked a little bit about. We'll be doing more research with both the usability testing that we've already started internally, but now working externally, and also doing our own internal study with the Lightspeed team on usability testing for ChatBot. And then ongoing effort that Eric has been leading is the accessibility auditing, and how we'll kind of formulate a plan based on the results of that audit on how we will be addressing those in the future. The big thing I mentioned is the micro animations. Unanimously from the initial round of feedback, everyone kind of called out that it would be awesome if animation was included, where we can have some more transitions and notable kind of nudges to interactions that would help the user address problems. So we were very pleased to have that kind of captured, but also be able to identify that is ongoing work that we have already set in motion. I mentioned earlier the micro animation, all the design tokens that we've created. All the foundation work is there to enable this work now in V6. So we have a large initiative project on our roadmap, and we're starting to group things into common patterns that we will be able to tackle across our components. And that's a list of some of the interactions, some of the transitions and the things in the GIFs that you can see. They're kind of components in isolation, kind of without context, but all these interactions are kind of meant to show feedback or transitions, focus on things like alerting, trying to pull focus, input validation, that kind of thing will all have a little bit of a subtle animation to try and stimulate the user to act on it. All this will, of course, be working with the preferred reduced motion, so we're not going to force animation if a user does not expect it. So that's that's it in a nutshell. That's a lot, and it was really hard to distill all of the past year and a half into a slideshow, but it's really nice to kind of be able to recap this with everybody. Thank you to the PatternFly team for all your hard work, and this is a big milestone to get through, and going from V5 work straight into V6 and getting all this done was just huge, and I really appreciate all your hard work. PatternFly 6 is not just a reskin, so please don't just consider it as we're going to import new style sheets and we're good to go. There's a lot of meaningful updates, and some things will change as a result of a brand new visual theme, but the PatternFly team is here to help. Our design resources can help. So we have our design shares, office hours, community meetings, Slack threads, email, Pigeon, I don't know, whatever you want to reach out to us. We're happy to chat and help you out, and take in your feedback so that we can make PatternFly even better. So with that, I'll end, and appreciate people staying around for the extra 4 minutes. If you do have questions, please reach out on one of those Slack channels, probably be the best way to go, or yeah, send us those carrier pigeons. All right, I appreciate